fan?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
You are?
Something.
By the way, if I ever run for office...
Are you in a mood today?
I'm going to run,
I feel like you're
Molly,
in a mood today. Yes?
I'm going to run for office one day on a platform of Wednesdays off. I have a whole theory about this. Turn Monday and Tuesday into Thursday and Friday. Wednesday off, and then Thursday and Friday is great as always. And you compensate by adding 2 hours to each day of the work week. Longer hours during Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
I enjoy that.
That's my platform.
Let's move on.
But are you in a mood today? I need to know. You're okay?
I'm fine. It depends. It depends on whether or not y'all get on my nerves.
Well, that's the point, isn't it?
We already have. It's always good to see you, Stephen. All right, coming up. Rapper T.I. will be in the house. He has a new EP to tell us about, plus a lot of social issues and Atlanta sports to get into. Please stay tuned for that. But first, we begin with the Jets' Brandon Marshall and wide receivers uniting. Marshall came to the defense of Odell Beckham after Ben McAdoo criticized Beckham last week, saying that OBJ needed to be, quote, less of a distraction following a sideline outburst and a loss to the Redskins. Eli Manning said after Monday's loss to the Vikings that Beckham has to play smart after another heated display. Here's Marshall.
You know, those guys over there need to be really careful. Like, they don't need to be speaking out on their teammate. They need to keep that in-house because they can lose him, you know, and I'm being honest. Like, they need to rally behind him and give him the support he needs and handle that stuff in-house, whether good or bad, because whether they like it or not, he's the best player on that team.
Max, do you like that Marshall said this?
Nope. And I love me some Brandon Marshall, and I agree with his point. As a Giants fan, I know why Coach is saying this, McAdoo, and Giants are saying this about Odell, but I think they can make the same point and couch it in language that makes it more supportive of Odell, that makes it more us against the world. And that's what Brandon Marshall's identifying, and he has I love listening to him opine about football. I think he's an excellent broadcaster, not only an elite wideout. But I know what you're doing here, Brandon. Stop. Oh, honestly, I'm just telling you because, you know, you could. No, this is not Dez Bryant, who, you know, a real rival of the Giants, the Cowboys. But Dez Bryant, when you hear him talk, he's talking as a receiver. Look, this is emotional. Receivers thrive on emotional. This maybe people don't understand. He's talking as a fellow receiver. I get the distinct impression here that Brandon Marshall is talking as a New York Jet, as an intercity rival, as a guy who's kind of throwing shade at the Giants, even though it's consistent. I know this is what makes it so dastardly and effective here, what he's doing, undercutting the Giants. Even though it's consistent with his philosophy, you know Brandon Marshall, you bring it up all the time, Stephen A. Boy, if he's your quarterback, if you're his quarterback, doesn't matter what you do or who you are, he's got your back. Brandon Marshall's all about team, defending his teammates, us against the world. But us against the world is also consistent with throwing shade at another team, particularly one that vies for the affection of the city in which you play. And here, I think he's actually trying to sow seeds of discontent with the Giants.
I think you're wrong. But I don't blame you for that because you're so preoccupied with the Giants that you may not have paid attention to a New York Jet who also happens to be a former Chicago Bear, who also happens to be a former Miami Dolphin, who also happens to be a former Denver Bronco. The fact of the matter is when you think about Brandon Marshall, the one thing that he's very, very, very serious about is when he talks about behavioral issues. All of that team stuff, NFL stuff goes right out the window when it comes to this guy on that particular issue. That's when he really gets deep. Now, I joke with him all the time about him wearing those pom-poms for his quarterback because God knows Jay Cutler should miss him because he didn't need a sports psychologist after being with Brandon Marshall because Brandon Marshall was Jay Cutler's own personal sports psychologist. He was the guy that lifted him up. He was the cheerleader. He was the mentor. He was everything to this guy because Jay Cutler had the ultimate dude that would go in the abyss to lift him out and elevate him to reality, okay, and relevancy rather. But when it comes to issues of anything mental, Brandon Marshall gets incredibly serious, very, very introspective, and he personalizes everything because he imagines the things that he had to endure. His troubled past had a lot to do with what he terms a mental illness. And he's spoken eloquently on this show and various other shows about that. He is very serious about it. He's not playing around. There's no ulterior motive. There's no agenda to it whatsoever. He really believes that the Odell Beckham Jr. is emotionally, I don't want to say damaged or anything like that because I think that's too strong of a word, but he's somebody that needs that support right now. That's where Brandon Marshall is coming from because and if you need to be concerned about anything, it's the seriousness with which Brandon Marshall is addressing it, Max, because what I suspect, I don't know because I have not spoken to Brandon Marshall about this. Last time I spoke to him was a few weeks ago. But Brandon Marshall, from me knowing him the way that I do, Brandon Marshall is sitting there and he's looking at Odell Beckham Jr. and he's saying, look, man, he's going through some things. He needs some support. Y'all don't need to be throwing him under the bus. You need to be there to uplift him. You need to be there to support him. That's where this is coming from.
If in fact that were the case, and I would like to believe you're right, I like Brandon Marshall.
I don't think you should like it, though.
I like Brandon Marshall a lot, as I said, as a TV broadcaster, not let alone, obviously, a tremendous receiver. But if that were the case and he believed that Odell Beckham was suffering from some kind of real emotional disturbance, then simply saying the team needs to support him in kind of vague terms, in other words, don't publicly criticize, is one thing. I think if he were coming at it from that point of view, he would say something like the team needs to offer him, you know, mental health support or otherwise more kind of approach the problem more seriously, not simply say, hey, the team doesn't need to be publicly criticizing.
Well, he's saying because a lot of times, usually guys that are troubled a bit emotionally, not mentally, but a bit emotionally, those are the kind of situations that really lead to their demise. When they feel like they have no support, there are certain people that need that support. Everybody can't, you know, I hate to personalize it, but everybody can't be me. I don't give a damn most of the time, so I'm a bit different. But somebody like an Odell Beckham Jr., a T.O. to a lesser degree in years past, and others, we come to find out that they have troubled history, troubled past. They've been damaged emotionally and on a personal level in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And as a result, you need to support because you will lose them otherwise. What did Brandon Marshall say? Odell Beckham Jr. is your best player. He's an absolute stud. You protect that asset. You protect that investment. You allow it, you nurture it and allow it to grow. You don't give the impression that you're going to jump ship, and you can't act like you're just going to judge him on the same level you're going to judge everybody else because he's a bit different.
First of all, I think Brandon Marshall's actually being consistent because he's all about team, his team. But along the same lines, so it's not exactly hypocrisy, but along the same lines, a lot of the people, the same people who feel, hey, a team shouldn't be talking about the player, the people who say maybe a player shouldn't be talking about another team. And especially painting an organization like the Giants, which has, since time immemorial, been run better than the Jets. It's a better organization than the Jets. They share the same town. The Giants are more popular, more successful.
But again,
their former players never badmouth them, etc.
Right.
You're playing for the Jets, throwing that shade at the Giants.
But you're thinking about him as a football player throwing shade at a football organization. He's looking at it as a personal individual with some emotional and mental issues from his past who could potentially relate to what Odell Beckham Jr. is going through because he's seeing something that they may not be seeing, and he's attacking it from a deeper level, which surprises me that you haven't picked up on since the philosopher that you are as deep as you can go.
I thought Dez was doing that. In fact, Dez.
Dez more so than Brandon Marshall.
I thought Dez was, even as a divisional rival, which is, you know, at least as big as an intercity rival, right? I thought he was really just talking from the point of view of a receiver, like, look, this is an emotional.
He was.
I thought Brandon Marshall was talking more about the Giants' response. And let me tell you why. Normally, like, even though I still don't like the way the Giants are being a little bit overly negative and not couching their language in terms that makes it seem like it's them against the world, that it's an in-house problem. The difference here is that Odell, and this was the turning point for me on this issue, Odell gets a warning. He was right. He got hit late. He got hit out of bounds. He turns to the ref to complain. The ref missed the call. And then he complaining cost the team 15 yards. Odell's complaint about a missed call cost the team 15 yards. That, I'm like, okay, I get it. Odell, calm down, but I get it. On the very next play, he looks for contact out of bounds as his own personal payback because the refs aren't taking care of him, and it could have and probably should have gotten him tossed. At that point, to me, the player's actually hurting the team. Now, Des Bryant, when he's throwing those fits on the sidelines and everyone got on him, I actually defended him because I'm like, wait a minute. He's not costing you field position.
What does any of this have to do with Brandon Marshall?
He's not costing you field position here. He's just exhorting his teammates on to better play. What I'm saying is Brandon Marshall being critical of the Giants for being critical of Odell is a little different because Odell actually is in a position where he's starting to cost the team or potentially cost the team.
But again, you're missing the point. Because what I'm saying about Brandon Marshall isn't taught. He didn't absolve Odell Beckham Jr. What he did was intimate that this dude may have some issues, and there's a level of sensitivity that the organization he plays for and the teammates he plays with may need to harness a bit of sensitivity towards, as opposed to sitting there and judging him on an equal playing field compared to everybody else when he's a different individual, not just as a player, but as a person because of whatever emotional hang-ups he may have.
If that's what he was doing, if in fact that's his intention, I'm saying, for Brandon Marshall.
You're just saying that he was calling out the Giants. And I'm saying it's not as simple as that because Brandon Marshall has a history that proves he's spoken about issues time and time again. It clearly transcends the world of sports when it comes to him.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
Regardless of Odell Beckham's mental state or emotional issues or anything like that, I don't like the fact that the Giants are publicly talking about what's going on. That Ben McAdoo
Which means
is saying
you agree
he's a
with Brandon
distraction.
Marshall.
Yeah,
the first thing I said is the content of what he said I actually agree with.
That part of it is that I don't think that they should be talking about that publicly. You're a team, and it should be the you versus against the world mentality, and you're a family. So why are you bringing that into the media and airing dirty laundry out?
We've discussed that. Everybody knows that the Giants were wrong to be calling him out. And not only that, I've made the case. This is an organization that's missed the playoffs 6 of the last 7 years. Talk about an organization that needs to be looking in the mirror instead of looking at one of its own players. Because Lord have mercy, long before Odell Beckham Jr. ever arrived, they were missing playoffs. Eli Manning, the quarterback position is the most important position on your field. He has played every single game for the last decade. And even though they won the Super Bowl, the other 6 years of the last 7, they have missed the playoffs.
And what if Odell Beckham went to the media and said, Eli, you need to stop throwing picks?
Right, absolutely right. By the way, the last time the Giants had, and these were not Odell Beckham Jr. talents, the Giants haven't had a talent like Odell Beckham Jr. since Lawrence Taylor was in his prime. Let's be very clear. He's different. However, they had kind of media sensation personalities and big production talent at positions, and as soon as they got rid of them, they won a couple Super Bowls, Jeremy Shockey and Tiki Barber. The Giants are not the kind of team that